minutes. I have to give credit, though, to our Vice President, Beth Collins. She has done a lot of the legwork tonight for this wonderful event. She's worked very hard. And so I'm going to let her introduce our guest speaker tonight.
Thank you, Lori. First, I would ask if everyone would please silence their phones. I know you might want to take video, but we want to make sure that everyone can hear Dr. Annie. And if you would, you can't hear? Okay. If everyone would get their seat. Okay. Dr. Annie just arrived, so we are delighted. I was starting to panic, but she was right on time. So, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Annie is a pediatrician. She's also a public health advocate, and she has spent the better part of 2 decades working and fighting on behalf of children. She has a great vision for how to improve the future of our children, which addresses gun violence, childhood poverty, and also climate change. So I won't belay this any longer. I would like to introduce Dr. Annie Andrews, candidate for U.S. Senate.
Thank you so much. Honestly, this work is very hard, and I've been on the phones all day fundraising, which can be demoralizing. So I think that was exactly what I needed to get me back in the right place. It really is a pleasure to be here. I came up with Elisa from my team and was commenting on the drive that it is just so nice to be running statewide and to get to see so many other beautiful parts of the state and get to meet so many new people that I didn't meet when I was running for Congress back in 2022. So because you are all new to me, I'm going to take a little bit of time to tell you about myself and why I'm running and how we're going to win this thing. And then, much to my team's dismay, I love answering questions, so we will leave plenty of time for that. I am what you may call an unscripted candidate. So, I'm Dr. Annie Andrews, and I am your Democratic candidate for South Carolina Senate seat. And as most of you probably know, I am a mom, most importantly, to my own 3 beautiful children, and I am a pediatrician. And I actually decided to be a doctor when I was 4 years old, and I know this because I told my preschool teacher, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor and a mommy with 3 children. And that is the beginning of my goal-oriented approach to life. And I know this because that day my teacher wrote it down and I drew a little picture, she sent it home, and my mom saved it, and I have that framed in my office at my home. So I always wanted to be a doctor, and from the very first moment I stepped into a children's hospital, I knew I was going to be a pediatrician. And I love my job as a pediatrician. It truly is the very, very best job. But when you go to work every day at a children's hospital, very similar to when you go to work every day at a public school, you can't help but notice all of the ways in which our society has put up barriers to our children achieving their best and brightest possible future. When you work in a children's hospital, as I have for nearly 20 years, nearly every day you see kids who are hungry and don't know where their next meal is coming from. You see kids who are alone in their hospital rooms at night because their parents are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. You stand at the bedside of a patient with a chronic disease like asthma or diabetes. You're explaining the plan to the worried parents, and they have to stop you and say, well, how much is that inhaler going to cost, doctor? You take care of children who are in the throes of a mental health crisis and can't access mental health resources in our community. And I, like every pediatrician in the country, has cared for far too many children who have been shot. And I am a problem solver. And so after these nearly 2 decades of going to work in a children's hospital and caring for children individually, bedside to bedside, hospital room to hospital room, I knew that I had to do more. So I started to look to Columbia, South Carolina, and Washington, D.C. for people who were fighting for South Carolina's children and our nation's children. And it won't surprise the folks in this room for me to tell you, I didn't find very many people in Columbia or in Washington, D.C. who are fighting for our children. So I got off the sidelines in an incredibly dramatic way. And back in November 2021, I made the decision, some may call brave, some may call stupid, to run against our nation's most embarrassing congresswoman, and hopefully not our future governor, Nancy Mace. And, you know, I didn't win that race. That was a redistricting year. Many of you probably know that they redrew that district, and it used to be an R+2, and now it's an R+10 to 14, depending on how you do your math, because they know that they can't win with their policies, so they have to win by rigging the system. But even though that race got really ugly, and Nancy said some horrible things about me, and I actually lost my job as a result of getting political on behalf of America's children, you are all very well aware by the fact that you are in this room that I did not go away. I've been fighting for kids and families in South Carolina literally every day since I lost that election. Because this has never been about me becoming a congresswoman or me becoming Senator Andrews. Honestly, I believe pediatrician is a much better job than serving in Washington, D.C. But this is about my vision for what South Carolina can be. This is about my vision for what I know the 73 million children in this country so desperately need and deserve. What I learned after running for Congress is that the corrupt policies, the bad, broken policies that come out of Washington, D.C. are harming our kids and families long before they ever got to me at the hospital door. Because we have far too many career, corrupt politicians like Lindsey Graham who are in it for themselves. Lindsey Graham has been so bold as to say into a microphone that he doesn't need to come to South Carolina and talk to us because he's in Washington, D.C. to do what one man tells him to do, and that one man is Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham has been in the U.S. Senate for 22 years, and until my birthday this weekend, that is literally half of my lifetime. He has been in the Senate for half of my lifetime. And, you know, there are some statesmen and women in the Congress who stay connected to their communities, who remain pillars of their communities and continue to serve the people who put them into office. So this isn't necessarily about how long he's been in office, but it's not working out so well for him. Most senators, including our Senator Lindsey Graham, don't get better with age. Over these 22 years, Lindsey has changed his position on nearly every issue. And he's willing to gleefully rip food off of our kids' plates, gut our nation's Medicaid program, threaten to cut Medicare and Social Security, watch prices spiral out of control, watch our democracy fall, and he doesn't care because all he cares about is what he needs to do to keep his corporate donors, his billionaire donors, and Donald Trump happy so that he can win his next election. And we deserve so much better. We deserve to be represented in Washington, D.C. by someone who's there to make our lives better, who believes that government can work for us, This isn't really about right versus left or Republican versus Democrat. This is about our career corrupt politicians who have been bought out by billionaires and the rest of us. And so those of us here in South Carolina need to show the country we have this beautiful opportunity ahead of us to show the country what it means to unite together to fight to elect leaders who will serve us. You know, a lot of people, actually a woman on the phone today asked me, why don't I just run as an independent? Because a Democrat can't win in South Carolina. And I refuse to believe that's true for a lot of reasons. This isn't a red state. This is a non-voting state. And this is a state that has been left behind. By our leaders. Lindsey Graham's approval rating right now is 34%. If I ever got a 34% on a test in medical school, I wouldn't be a doctor. But he thinks he can just coast back to re-election because we can tell by his behavior that he thinks he's invincible. But I'm not going to run as an independent. That's not a path to victory in our current two-party system. And I'm actually a proud Democrat. Because I see Democrats fighting to pass an expanded and permanent and fully refundable child tax credit that would lift millions of American children out of poverty. I'm a proud Democrat because I see Democrats fighting every day to restore a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. Climate change, to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, to invest in renewable energy, and we should see that as an economic opportunity. I'm a proud Democrat because I believe we should fully fund our nation's Medicaid program, and I actually have a lot of ideas about how we can make it better. I'm a proud Democrat because I believe we should protect Medicare and Social Security, and I understand that we've made a deal with American workers and we need to make good on that deal. I'm a proud Democrat because Democrats lead with honesty, integrity, and moral authority. Those things, though, don't make it easy to win elections, right? It's hard to win when we're up against such an evil enemy who doesn't really care about the rules and who isn't guided by a certain set of moral principles, North Star. But we have to find a way to fight back without losing our own integrity, without sacrificing who we are and what we believe in, but we've got to fight back in a way that we have not. The old approach isn't going to work. Like so many of you, I was devastated when Kamala Harris and Tim Walz lost last November. I put a lot of time and effort into raising money for them, and I was devastated. We're not playing by the same rules. We have to do things differently. We need a new generation of leaders. We need politicians and candidates who are regular people, and therefore they talk like regular people, and they meet regular people where they are. We can't be afraid to say what needs to be said, and we have to play bad politics with bad politics. We have to fight back, y'all. Yeah. And we have a real opportunity. Can you even imagine the shockwave it would send through the American political system if Lindsey Graham loses to a little pediatrician? So much confidence on the debate stage. But to get serious, though, we have an opportunity to win this election. You cannot let people tell you that it's time to write South Carolina off. Democrats have won statewide in Georgia and North Carolina. Some of you may have had the privilege of meeting Governor Andy Beshear, the Democratic governor of Kentucky, a state that Trump won by many, many double digits. It is possible. We just need leaders who inspire people to get out and vote. We need leaders who talk about what they're going to do when they get elected. And that's the kind of leader that I will be. That's the kind of leader that I am. This is possible. 2026 is nothing like 2020. This is a midterm election year. Donald Trump is not on the ballot to bail out his buddy, Lindsey Graham. There are plenty of voters in this state who will only bother to go to the voting booth if Donald Trump is on the ballot. 2020 was also COVID, so Democrats in the Harrison campaign could not knock on doors, and you cannot win an election in a state like South Carolina if you can't knock on doors. So I got in this campaign 18 months before the general election because I know it's going to take that amount of time to raise the resources I need to travel across the state to meet the voters where they are, to build the kind of infrastructure that we need to deliver a victory in November 2026. So even though Lindsey Graham only cares about himself, I want you all to know that I believe so deeply in the future of South Carolina. I believe in the kids and families that I've served here for nearly 2 decades. I'm not afraid to throw a sharp elbow. I don't pull punches. I will stand up to anyone who is willing to throw our kids and families under the bus. And I'm starting with Lindsey Graham, and I won't stop when I get to the U.S. Senate. And I promise you that I mean what I say and I say what I mean. And if I'm given the privilege to be the Democratic nominee in this race in 2026, no one will work harder than I will to deliver a victory. And then I promise you, when I get to Washington, D.C., when I have the privilege to serve as your senator, I will not embarrass you, and I will make you proud, and I will fight for you every single day. So thank you so much.
I don't need the mic though.
Okay.
Huge gospel voice here. Listen, labor force participation is stagnant at 62.2%. Long-term unemployment rose to about 1.8 million. And many job seekers report unemployment or difficulty matching their skills to openings. As a pediatrician and public health advocate, what policies would you support to expand workforce inclusion and retraining opportunities, especially in underserved communities and for younger South Carolinians entering the workforce?
Thank you for that question. The biggest picture answer to what you just asked is we need adults in the room. We need adults with serious expertise, backgrounds, and problem-solving approaches to design an economy that works for everyone. Again, we have a dwindling middle class. We have folks graduating with 4-year degrees who can't afford rent, let alone the dream of buying a home. They can't find jobs. We have rural communities that are losing their workforce. We need to rebalance everything. We have growing prices and stagnant wages. We have a huge economic divide in this country where the billionaires can't seem to get rich enough off of the backs of American workers. The Trump administration has been incredibly chaotic. The Trump 2.0 administration has been incredibly chaotic when it comes to addressing the economic woes that we are facing in rural areas and in urban areas, because they don't have a serious plan. They are just trying to distract us while they enrich their billionaire donors. For example, the on-again, off-again tariffs have wreaked havoc across this state. Whether it's folks who actually work at the ports near where I live in the Low Country, whether it's our South Carolina farmers, our South Carolina small business owners, those who work in the South Carolina auto industry. We can't handle this unpredictable, chaotic economic plan. And the fact of the matter is we need to redesign a system that works to build a strong middle class and stops focusing on enriching the richest among us.
If Paul Dan was here right now, what would you say to him?
I'd say please sit down, sir.
Get him on
I'm a
tape.
teacher, folks. I'm not sure I need this. Well, I was just going to ask, what steps would you take to address the crisis at the VA? South Carolina is a very veteran-heavy state, and my husband is a veteran with serious health problems, and so I know he's not the only one. So what, in your ideal world, what would you do to help with that?
We're at such a disadvantage now because the first thing we're going to have to do is undo everything that this administration has done. We're only 6 months in. We need to support our veterans. We need to expand access to quality health care for our veterans. We need to make it easier for them to access that care. We need to appropriately recruit and train and pay the physicians and nurses and other healthcare providers who work in the VA healthcare system. When I was a third-year medical student, I went to medical school in Cincinnati where they have a lovely VA hospital, and I spent a whole month on my internal medicine rotation there, and it was one of my favorite months of medical school, and I will never forget this gentleman who came in with his wife, and he got admitted through the emergency department with a terrible cough. And in the emergency department, they did a CT scan, and they found a giant lung tumor. And he was incredibly ill. And talking to his wife, said he's been coughing for weeks, for months. He's a veteran. He didn't realize he qualified for VA health benefits. And so he just stayed home. And he got sicker and sicker while the tumor in his lungs grew until it was inoperable. And he died a couple weeks after I left the VA. And that is such a tragic story that was preventable and a terrible way to treat people who put their lives on the line for this country. We can do so much better, and we must do so much better for America's veterans. The problem in the VA healthcare system applies to our entire healthcare system, and it's like they're just lighting it on fire right now. We'll probably get to a question about this, but I've worked with the majority of Medicaid patients for my entire career as a pediatrician, because most people don't understand that Medicaid is the largest insurer for children in South Carolina and in this country. It is a children's health care program. It is the literal backbone of children's health care in this country. And they're they signed a bill into law that will take $1 trillion out of that system over the next decade. And you cannot expect any system to continue to function when you take $1 trillion out of the budget. I know for a fact that South Carolina's largest hospital systems are already making hiring decisions based on this looming budget hole they see coming. Even though the actual law doesn't go into effect until 2026, after the midterm elections, by design, hospitals are already cutting back on the number of nurses they were going to hire, the number of respiratory therapists they were going to hire. Outlying outpatient facilities they were going to build, service lines. I spoke to someone who works for one of these large systems earlier this week. And the services that are going to get cut first are pediatrics and maternal health care and labor and delivery. This is going to devastate our state's healthcare system. Children deserve health care, veterans deserve health care, pregnant women deserve health care. Health care is a human right. And we need to build a system that allows more Americans, that allows every American
you talked about Medicaid. You had mentioned improvements that you had thought about for the Medicaid system. You care to elaborate?
Sure, yes. And I will elaborate because I think we get so busy playing defense as Democrats that we forget to like paint a vision of what could be possible if we start winning damn elections again. So I work in a lot of spaces with a lot of really smart child health policy experts and advocates. And many of you probably understand that the Medicaid program is designed very different than the Medicare program. The Medicaid program is state administered. A portion of the funding comes from the federal government. A lot of the funding comes from states. South Carolina is one of just a few states that has refused to expand Medicaid, which is mind-blowing. But what if we had a federalized health insurance program for Americans under the age of 18, just like we have a federalized health insurance program for Americans 65 and older? What if we invest in the health care of minors in this country, our future workforce and taxpayers? Which, by the way, would cost pennies on the dollar to what it costs to insure Americans 65 and older. And if children have access to high-quality preventive health care when they're children, they're going to be healthier when they're 65. It's basic economics, and it's basic human empathy. So I fully believe that if we start winning elections, and because they have chosen to burn our Medicaid system down to the ground, this could be an opportunity to build back something better. Something like MediKids, where every child in this country has access to high-quality health care.
Dr. Andrews, thank you. Thank you for your willingness to run. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Thank you for your willingness to represent.
Tell them who you are.
I want to address a really big elephant in the room. And you mentioned really sort of increasing voter participation in South Carolina. And I am really concerned about how that impacts particularly communities of color. And we see that there are not a lot of those that are in this room that represent those communities. When the majority community gets a cold, minority communities get the flu. And we can see it in the rising rate of unemployment for African American women. We can see it in Black women maternal childbirth rates. We can see it in crime rates. What's your message to communities of color to turn this thing around and to ensure that they are a higher percentage of those that are coming out to vote and to support you?
Representative Robert Reed.
Thank you for the question. I couldn't agree more, but I also can't blame people who have been left behind by politicians who show up once every 2 years and ask for their votes and then go to Washington, D.C. and forget them. You know, I mean, we need to start delivering results. My job as a candidate right now is to go everywhere I can and talk to people about their problems. The job of a doctor is 90% listening and 10% communicating back. I sit down with patients and their parents on some of their worst days. I listen to their problems. I make a diagnosis. Together we come up with a treatment plan. I communicate that back to the family. I see politics as absolutely no different. We need to come in and we need to listen first, but then we need to create a vision for what is possible and what we will do if given the privilege to serve. And we need to talk about it in really tangible ways. To me, that's the lesson of what we saw in the New York City mayoral race. He talked about really concrete, tangible things that voters can understand and that will make voters' lives better. To me, the lesson of that was not where he is on the ideological spectrum of politics. It's about getting back to retail politics and actually solving people's problems. There's a lot of white women in this room, and I hope they won't be offended when I say that, but we need to get our shit together collectively. standing shoulder to shoulder with the Black women who have been doing this work and voting for us for decades. And then when we deliver results, we need to come back and explain the results that we delivered and take credit for our successes. Thank you for your question. You're welcome.
I think they do, yes.
Okay, so I want to talk about the scary alligator Alcatraz that is being threatened to come to South Carolina. But beyond that, what I see happening every day on the news is truly terrifying, that these trucks are pulling up to people's homes, unmarked, masked men with guns, arresting, immigrants that may or may not be here illegally, but maybe are likely following the prescribed protocol of the United States to gain citizenship, and they're being kidnapped off the streets by these people and sent to this internment camp where they don't have access to lawyers. And what I'm concerned about is, when did it become okay for people posing and acting as federal agents and ICE and Homeland Security to be masked with no ID, snatching people off the street? Because today it's the immigrants, but who's it going to be tomorrow? What are you going to do, and what would you do to help protect us as South Carolinians, but also oppose this threat of an Alcatraz coming to our state?
I mean, yes, we have Republican candidates for governor who are, advocating to build an alligator Alcatraz here in South Carolina. So first we have to start winning elections. As someone who was on the outside of politics for a really long time, I get frustrated watching members of both parties use immigration as a political football every election season, but then fail to deliver results. And to give credit where credit is due, the Democrats did have a lovely immigration reform bill that Republicans stopped last Congress. So they are trying to do the work. But we need comprehensive immigration reform. To be a secure nation, we do need a secure border, and we need to enforce the laws as currently written on the books. But we can do that while also respecting the human dignity of the people who have chosen to come to this country to build a better life for their families. We need to expand paths to citizenship, because we can't say to these people, who are the backbone of our economy, especially in agriculture right now, to come in through the front door when they're already here working, and we don't make it easy for them to get legal status. So we need comprehensive immigration reform, but what we're seeing out of the Trump administration is political theater. It's nothing more. It's us versus them. It's fear-mongering. And it's, again, because they can't win by delivering ideas and solutions that will make our lives better, so they're trying to divide us with fear and hate. And what I learned when I ran before is, sadly, that works. That works. So we have to build a broader coalition of people who won't respond to the politics of fear and start winning elections, and then come up with comprehensive immigration reform that includes building a secure border, not building a secure border, having a secure border, enforcing the laws as they are currently written, and expanding paths to citizenship for people who are here, contributing to our economy and trying to build a better life for themselves. It is deeply un-American to see people ripped off of the sidewalks by masked men and thrown into unmarked vehicles. And I worry that we're not at the top of the slippery slope anymore. We're halfway down it. And our only chance to recover is to win elections in 2026. So it's our job, it's 15 months away, it's our job to do everything we can to put in the sweat equity that it takes to deliver results on election night. And 95% of that is unglamorous work. It's organizing, it's talking to your neighbors, it's talking to people at the grocery store about what concerns you. It's knocking on doors, it's text banking, phone banking, putting yard signs in your yard, driving people to the polls. It's all of that unglamorous work that goes on behind the scenes that we have to engage in. Listen, I never planned to be a political candidate, but I saw problems in my job as a pediatrician that forced me outside of my comfort zone into this arena where I feel like I can solve problems. So if I can do this, y'all, if I can run against Lindsey Graham after running against Nancy Mace, y'all can sign up for volunteer.
Thank you. I have two sisters in the Charleston district, one of whom voted for you the last time. The other one was gerrymandered out of your district. The one critique that I heard from them was that your campaign was too narrowly focused on children, and they would have liked to have heard more about especially about us older generation. You know, what are we supposed to do, especially when I just learned from my physical therapist that their Medicare payments are being cut already by 2%. And they're already barely getting anything from Medicare as it is. But there's so many other things that are affecting us. For-profit hospitals, for-profit assisted living places, rents so high that we can't afford to sell our houses now and go and rent someplace. And then we can't even get started on what medical care costs if you don't have the F plan like I have.
That's a great question, and I will talk about children all day if people allow me. So that is a fair criticism. But I will also push back and say what's good for kids is good for families. And what's good for families is good for the economy. And if the only thing you know about me is that my North Star is what's good for America's children, and that every vote I take in Washington, D.C. will be the vote that is on the side that benefits America's children, then I don't really think we can go wrong. But it is my job as a candidate for the U.S. Senate to talk about other constituencies. You sort of answered your question as you asked it in the way that I was going to start answering it, which is that we have a profit-centered healthcare system in this country right now. The amount of time I spend as a hospital-based pediatrician dealing with insurance companies outweighs the time I spend dealing with patients and their parents. And it shouldn't be that way. And it applies to Medicare is an incredible program, but it is also not the same for everyone. You have to have all these supplemental plans. The price, my mother has Parkinson's disease. And when she gets home from the pharmacy and says, I don't know why it was $2,000 this month, it was $200 last month. I mean, we have no transparency in healthcare pricing because we have a system that is built to benefit insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. And now the new bad guy on the block, the pharmacy benefit managers who literally do nothing but put another person to make money in between the doctor and the patient. So we need comprehensive healthcare reform. We need to make the Medicare system stronger. The Biden administration did a lot of great work to lower the cost of prescription drugs. We don't talk about our successes enough, and now they're all being threatened and erased, and we're going in the wrong direction. But lowering the cost of prescription drugs, allowing the Medicare program to negotiate the price of drugs, because they are a very large program, they have negotiating power, but they've been for too long forbidden from negotiating. If we lower the price of prescription medications, which will decrease the profits that our pharmaceutical companies experience, but deliver higher quality, lower cost healthcare to every American, that would be a huge start on affordability to Americans 65 and older. But again, we're gonna have to rebuild everything that's being destroyed right now, including the 6 out of 10 nursing home beds in South Carolina that are funded by the Medicaid program. I watched both of my grandparents suffer from and then ultimately pass from Alzheimer's disease, and they lived in rural western Kentucky. And the cost of in-home health care for them and the limitations on what their Medicare would pay for, it was devastating to watch. And these were, relatively well-to-do people with 5, 7 healthy, able-bodied children who could help, but it's impossible to navigate. And again, we just have a country that is enriching its billionaires while we screw over literally everyone else. And the answer to that is to decrease corruption in Washington, D.C. And you do that by electing people who actually care, and then create some systemic changes that will decrease the tolerance in the system for corruption. Some of those things include ending Citizens United, which we can't do until we start winning elections, but we will do once we start winning elections. It also includes prohibiting members of Congress from trading stock. I don't know what I'll do with all the time I spend trading my stock portfolio. That was a joke. We also need term limits. With very few exceptions. Leaders don't get better after 30 years. You run out of good ideas. You run out of the motivation to innovate. You lose touch with the people who elected you in the first place. So I believe in term limits. I would term limit myself to 2 terms in the US Senate, and I would go back to my happy job of being a pediatrician. But we can decrease corruption in the system if we build some new barriers within the system to decrease the tolerance, and that is a way to address all of these problems. Yes.
First of all, I'm Dylan Phillips from Lexington County. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for putting your name in the hat to fight for our children, to give a voice to the voiceless. My question is, what will you do to increase access to mental health care in South Carolina with the cuts to Medicaid that has the 90-day IND exclusion, institutions of mental disorders?
It's a problem we don't talk about enough, and there is a cultural shift that has happened in the healthcare professional world, where we all of a sudden realize that the brain is attached to the rest of the body, and that mental health is health, and we need to start treating it that way in the way we legislate around what healthcare programs must provide to our patients. We were actually just talking about this on the car ride down, the differences in different state Medicaid programs and what mental health services they will pay for. But I know as a pediatrician who worked at the Children's Hospital in Charleston for 15 years, every single day there are young people in that hospital just lying there in a mental health crisis waiting for a bed to open up at one of our inpatient psychiatric units, or waiting to find an intensive outpatient program that will take them. The demand is far outweighing what we can offer these patients. And we need to encourage healthcare providers to go into mental health careers by incentivizing them to do so and paying them at the same level that some of our other physicians are paid. We need to build public healthcare options that treat mental health like health, and understand that investing in patients' mental health is investing in their overall health. And we just need to reduce barriers and stigma. But South Carolina, like almost every ranking, we're on the bottom of this list. We have mental health care deserts all over this state, especially when it comes to folks who will see our children who are struggling. But we don't have enough serious people, we don't have enough problem solvers. We have people playing theatrics with politics in Washington, D.C. who are creating problems rather than solving them. So, not to be redundant, we need to start winning elections to actually start solving these problems.
Nobody's really addressed this. I like everything you're saying. But my question to you is, how are you going to make it happen? Because you've got to fight some dirty Republicans. He isn't going to play fair, and you know that. And you've got to go to that upcountry where for 22 years they've been thinking he's the greatest. What is your plan for getting elected? I've done a little research. Last year, they said on Google that 55.4% of registered voters in South Carolina were women. It blew me away. I thought, well, heck, that's easy. I mean, you're a winner right there. Well, how do you get those people to to elect you, because as far as I'm concerned, that's a no-brainer. Why would any woman in the world not vote for you? I mean, come on, how do we do it? How do we get every woman in South Carolina that's registered to vote for you? So what's your plan?
Good question. Thank you so much. I agree. I'm the far better choice. And this gets back to the unglamorous parts of campaigning. This is about the financial resources necessary to run the kind of campaigns statewide you have to run. Because I am one of those candidates that the more face time I have with voters, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, the more people like me. Like, I'm a real, authentic person who really, really cares about what I'm doing. And that takes time and resources to get me in front of as many people as possible. And I need my ambassadors out there in every corner of this state talking about the fact that you were here tonight and that you liked what I said about whatever issue you liked what I said about, and that you believe in this campaign, and that I've convinced you that Democrats can win in South Carolina. And isn't it time to try something different? Lindsay's had 22 years. Give me a chance. If you hate me in 6 years, vote for the next Republican who comes up behind Lindsey Graham. But we as a state have to recognize that we aren't doing so well, and it's time to try something new. We also have to push back when they label me as some crazy DNC recruited liberal gun-grabbing Pelosi puppet. I've never met Nancy Pelosi, for the record. No one recruited me to run. I'm running because I care. And we need to all push back in our little, in our mahjong groups, in our book clubs, at church, at the grocery store. We have to just change the narrative. I was talking to somebody about this today. They have co-opted family values. South Carolina Republicans are not displaying family values in the headlines that we see day after day after day. We need to take that term back. They've co-opted patriotism. We need to claim that back. I often sign my tweets with an American flag, and someone said, why do you do that? Make sure like a Republican. It's our flag too. Take control. And trust me when I tell you no one will work harder. We learned today that our campaign has raised $1.7 million in the 2 months that I've been in this race. And that's not because I have a fancy Rolodex of rich lawyers and politicians in my phone. My phone is full of other moms and pediatricians. It's because I work really hard to raise money, because I know that's a necessary step to win this election. So I need all of you with me. We have enough time. We have 15 months to do this thing. So I need you all to be talking to your neighbors and your friends, and then, come to the election night party where we celebrate. Yet. Number one, I'm here tonight to earn your vote and to ask for your vote and your support. I also need your support in your sweat equity, your volunteer hours. You can go to our website, drannieandrews.com, sign up to be in our volunteer database, and when we're ready, you will hear from us about what we need you to do. We need volunteers in every corner of this state. So that is something really important that you can do now. And you can also donate on our website. Every dollar matters. $5 recurring donations make our team so happy, because then we know what money is coming in every month, and then we know we can hire a political director in the upstate to combat those folks who think they love Lindsay, but they just don't know yet that they don't. So I do need your financial support. And then you elect me and we'll overturn Citizens United, we'll get publicly funded campaigns, and I'll never have to ask for your money again. Thank you. Maybe one more question.
I'm a 32-year retired special ed teacher. I work in Title I schools, and I work with children with emotional and behavioral issues. I am very concerned about public education in this country. And in this state particularly. I'm not a natural South Carolinian. I was raised in the service. My father was Air Force. But it seems like we're going towards no public education. And children who are not well elite, and we're going to pay for them to go to school, and we're going to leave the other children behind. And I'm very concerned about that.
My mom is also a retired special ed teacher, and I echo your concerns. Linda McMahon is currently running our Federal Department of Education. She apparently is of wrestling fame. We need serious people in the room, and we need to win elections to make that happen. But this coordinated attack on our nation's public health system is truly unprecedented, and I believe we are like the hot zone for it here in South Carolina. Ellen Weaver is a despicable superintendent. I am a proud public school parent. My 3 children go to public schools in the Charleston County School District. I believe so deeply that every child, no matter their zip code, deserves access to a high quality, free public education.
Yes.
I say this a lot because I get accused of using kids for my own political gain, when what in fact I am doing is using politics to help my kids and all the kids. But we see elected officials like Tim Scott, the champion of school voucher schemes, using our kids in their political gains. They're using our children as pawns for their own political pursuits. And we just have to win elections so that we can get back to the foundation of this country, which is access to quality public education for every child. Because children cannot reach their full potential if they don't get a quality education. We need to start paying our teachers more. And we need to get culture wars out of the classroom. And we can do that. We will have candidates for superintendent this cycle. We need to support them as well. And we just have to get loud about what we're unhappy with in our public school system. But this is, make no mistake, this was part of Project 2025. This is how you take control of a democracy, by dumbing down the electorate. They want our children in the fields picking crops, not in the classroom learning. And we have to get loud. We have to build a broader coalition so we can start winning elections. That includes teachers and doctors and nurses and anyone who gives a damn about the future of this country.
If we have no other questions, thank you again, Dr. Annie Andrews, for coming. And she will be here for just a few moments if you want to say hello on your way out. Thank you, everybody.
I'm just giving a really difficult
Before everyone leaves, in case you were wondering, some were wondering who I am, I'm Bill Robinson, and I'm the chair of Kershaw County's Democratic Party. And I just wanted to inform everyone that we'll be hearing from all of the candidates that are running against Lindsey Graham very soon, because they all want to come to Kershaw County. So I'm in the process of scheduling that with our women's group real soon. So just stay tuned.